Hi, and welcome to our expert chat. My name is Gail, and I'm an editor at Understood. Today we're going to be talking to child psychologist Lynne Kenney about how movement can help kids with ADHD learn. Hi, Lynne. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, Gail, it's so great to be here with you today. My name is Lynne Kenney. I'm a pediatric psychologist in Arizona, and I have just the wonderful pleasure of playing with children, doing coordinative rhythmic exercises in order to build their cognition. And I write these activities at the request of teachers and put them in books, do them in trainings all around, now slowly the world, as we're going to China next week in 2 weeks to present this content.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Just a reminder to everyone, if you have questions for Dr. Kenney, just ask them in the chat box. Lynne, can you start by explaining what does the relationship show about learning and movement?
Well, it's a big area. If we look at cognition, learning, movement, kinesiology, some of the audiological neuroscience, there are over 400 studies published in this area, beginning in the 1970s. But the last 5 years has seen a big growth of research. And basically what we've known for 50 years for sure that exercise is good for you. It's good for you cardiovascularly. It prevents diabetes. It prevents obesity. Children who are fit have better attention, better working memory. They have more on-task behaviors. But what we're learning now is that there's probably a specific style of movement that we can do in order to enhance the brain. And at the very cutting edge, as of 2016, 2017, it looks like doing coordinative, rhythmic activity with cognitive engagement likely stimulates the parts of the cerebrum and the subcortical structures of the brain that enhance attention, working memory, and cognitive control, all related to ADHD.
Can you explain a little bit more about that relationship between movement and ADHD?
Well, yeah, we knew, again, 50 years ago, kinesiologists and early educational developmental people really knew that motor coordination is highly tied with cognition. In many ways, cognition is embodied. It's the whole body that's thinking. And the cerebellum is highly involved with executive function. But somehow we lost that. In the mid-century, we got overly interested in cognition only as existing in the frontal lobes. And now there's a reviving of our understanding that the brain is built from bottom up and from back forward. And the cerebellum, basically the frontal lobes rest on the cerebellum and the subcortical structures. So they're all working together in our thinking. So we're very excited about this literature, and it's really helping the children in the classrooms and in PE class to get up and move in order to learn better.
How can teachers bring that movement into the classroom?
Well, these are important things to think about. So I interact with, many, hundreds and hundreds of teachers every year. And when I used to talk about this, 10 years ago, teachers felt excited but a little bit resistant because they really are taught to teach to the test, and the testing has an impact on everything in the classroom. But with the new neuroscience, as we match the neuroscience, kinesiology, and education, as we match it all together, we really realize that in the classroom, you can do something as simple movement. Just, making sure that the children, 3 to 5 minutes every 45 minutes, are getting up and moving around the classroom between centers, or, let them out of their seats. That's good. Simple movement. You can do purposeful academic movement, and many preschool and kindergarten and first grade teachers are. So, acting out the lesson, I saw a classroom where they put the math on a 4 square, and they were bouncing the balls regarding the math, being the letters. I've got an activity in our 70 Play Activities book where you spell out the task by identifying each person who's related to a specific task, like walking to the lunchroom. So you can do simple movement, you can do purposeful academic movement, you can do what's called MVPA, moderately vigorous physical activity. And of course, that's where you get all the aerobic gains and the oxygenation in the brain. So just doing your jumping jacks, or I like to alternate 2 tasks. So I might have the kids do, 10 jumping jacks and then 10 burpees, and then 8 jumping jacks and then 8 burpees. And then the area that my work mostly focuses on are the last 2 categories, and that would be coordinative rhythm exercise with cognitive engagement. So that would be, marching for 8 counts. And then on the 8th count, we might, as an example, spell the name of your school forward and then spell it backward. So I'll do it in 4 counts because it's faster. We would go 1, 2, 3, 4, T for tar water. 1, 2, 3, 4, A. We would spell it out and then we might spell it backwards. So that's an example of, we have over 100 cognitive engagement rhythmic activities that we've written, but that's an example of one.
Wow, that actually sounds
fun, huh?
like fun. Exactly. Do you think teachers are afraid that if they try this stuff, they're going to lose control of the classroom, or kids are going to get sort of riled up?
Yeah, and I think that that's a legitimate fear. I think that because I do this in the classroom, and actually there's a video on my blog right now that I'm using in training that I got consent, because most of my videos I only use in training. But if you go to my blog at lynnekenney.com, the first blog post I think has a little video. And so the bottom line is, yes, kids will get out of control if I think you don't set up what the landscape is. So I actually teach the children, hey guys, we're going to learn how to be cognitive scientists today. Does that sound fun to you? And I might even say, and this is usually true, I'm about to do a training. Will you help me work out an exercise? So you've got to set up, one, we're about to do something that is actually the cutting edge in neuroscience and education. 2, you're some of the first kids who are participating. 3, when we do these movements, we're going to be purposeful and have intent, because as cognitive scientists, we're working to build our brains. We're trying to increase our attention. We're trying to improve our memory. We're trying to increase our cognitive control. So we want to do them and we want to have a blast. And I actually want you kids to, I have the kids create activities with me and everything. But basically, it's the setup of elevating them to cognitive scientists that usually does keep them pretty calm and organized. But I think it's a very legitimate concern.
Is this the kind of activity that is limited to the younger years, or can this be applied to older grade school kids or middle school kids?
Well, this is a very good question. And yes, a lot of the, clap and catch activities we do with the younger children. I up to 12. I do them up to 12, from about 5 to 12. So we've got all sorts of, basically what we do is we take 1 or 2 motor movements, we match it with a beat, usually a 4 count or an 8 count. And then as it becomes more automated and the children can march on a beat, which many children can't, then we add the cognition. So as an example, I was with a 12-year-old recently, and we were doing a march, 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 clap, 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 cross, 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 pause. And even a 12-year-old thinks that's fun. As we get into the older kids, what I do with them is I help them create activities for the younger children, because I find the older kids don't really want to be subjects. They feel like the activity might be young. So what they do is they help us create activities for the younger people, and then they're highly engaged. And then finally in sport, I've really been starting to observe that, as an example, if I see a tennis player and they don't have good rhythm, I can talk with their coach about just doing an exercise that would be, a 4 count forehand cross court pass, then a 4 count down the line. And just that consistent working on the beat is really great for older kids. So the activities are playful and often written for the younger kids, because those are the kids where we're trying to really change their brains early, they can definitely be adapted.
We have a question from a user about the relationship between movement and executive function, in addition to movement and attention. So is there a relationship, and can movement be used on some of the executive functions?
Yes. Okay. So there's basically 3 levels of the research. The first level of research, which has the most evidence, is that physical activity or movement, when it increases fitness, is good for you. Okay, so nobody's really debating that. Then there's another level of research that has over 20 studies, and that's basically saying that physical activity or movement can increase academic gains, and we're finding that there are some studies where they'll do physical activity in the classroom, or some of the professors at University of Illinois actually had a bus and took the kids to after-school programs. And if you're doing physical activity after school or in school consistently, you're going to get better math and reading specifically better outcomes. The newer area that we're focusing on, which your colleague is asking about, is what is the role of movement in cognition? And that from NIH's standpoint is called embodied cognition. And basically, we move to think, especially if we have ADHD, because Sarver just published a study where they found that on they administered neuropsychological tests on a weekly basis, 4 weeks in a row, to typically developing children, and then a small sample, I think it was about under 30 kids boys with ADHD, and they ranged I think they were around the 11-year-old age. We could look at the study, and they basically found that this motor movement that you do, or I've got a pedal bike that I ride underneath my desk, this moving while you're thinking actually calls up your attention neural networks so that you're better able to, one, pay attention so that you can take the information in, encode the information, and then store it in your memory, moving it from working memory to long-term memory. So it does appear, even though this is the newer line of research, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this, that movement is closely tied to some specific executive functions, namely attention, working memory, cognitive control, sequencing, planning. Those are really being studied right now.
Great. We have a question that goes back to middle school, which is, how can you incorporate movement into their school day?
Yeah, so the thing that I would do most is you can, one, do sport-related movements, like in 5N45, which is the program that we just wrote with the Yale team at C8 Sciences. 5N45 is a specific cognitive exercise program that goes with the computer program called Activate. And in that program, we have over 20 activity cards. And so we've got sport cards. And middle schoolers are willing to do sport. So when I tell the middle schoolers we're going to become cognitive scientists, we're going to do coordinative rhythmic activity because it's going to really call up your working memory and attention skills. And basically that's going to make learning easier for you, specifically encoding and retrieving. I lay first you got to tell them why, right? Not just, come on, let's bounce around. Let's look like we're doing Zumba. You got to explain why. And then when you do the sport activity specifically, they're all in. So they're skiing to throwing a ball, skiing to, and they're more willing to participate then. Now, if you're not doing a formal cognitive exercise or coordinative exercise program, let's say you don't have Activate or you haven't read our books, then just really adding rhythm to their movement, like using percussion, drumming, marching, those kinds of things within the middle school classroom will still be very beneficial for their thinking and their cognition.
I have to ask this.
Yes.
What do you think about the fidget craze? And, is it useful, fidgets, in the classroom?
Well, the fidgets look fun. I read the story of how they were created. Apparently they were created by a woman who had some fine motor dexterity problems and she wanted to play with her children. That's the story that I had read online. I think I personally am less into stuff and more into human relationships. So when I saw the fidgets, it didn't even spark my interest. I was like, let's have a relationship. Let's bounce a ball together. Let's sing a song together. Let's do a clapping activity together. Let's use our upper body and our lower body. That's really, motor cognition is what's going to improve our brains. So I think the fidget craze will be like those patch doll, things and slowly fall away. We do need to let our children with ADHD and executive function challenges move more in the classroom. But if we can do it purposefully and with intent, then the schools can stay calm and the children can have better cognition.
Great. Let me ask you, how can we support teachers in terms of helping them include movement in their classroom?
Well, I think that you need two things. I think you need the research that justifies why you're doing what you're doing, because we tend to be so evidence-based. You need that. And it needs to be easily comprehended by the school boards, as an example. And then you need the activities. And there aren't that many activity programs. Now, there's Spark, which, I'm a big fan of, and I really like Paul Rosengart a lot, and he's got a great heart, and they started Spark in 1989, and that's still a nonprofit PE program. Then there are programs within research places that are slowly moving out, like 5N45, slowly moving out of the universities and the NIH-funded grants into the populace. But I think that, you need to have the activities, and that's why when Rebecca and I wrote 70 play activities, we actually wrote scripts. And when we wrote 5N45, we wrote scripts of what to say, think, and do, because this is all relational brain development. It's not go push a button and watch a movie on a video and sit down. There's actually one study that shows that the biggest feature of cognitive change was related to the degree to which the teachers were engaged and modeling and involved. So the most amazing thing about all of this research, Gail, is that it's very relational. It's not plug and play. It's let's all have a relationship so that we can grow our brains and our learning together.
And what can parents do at home to encourage the movement and learning connection?
Yeah, so I love that question. And the first thing I always teach parents is how to sequence, okay? So one, free play. Go play outside, have joy. The Diamond 2015 and Diamond and Ling Research 2016 says that joyfulness, having fun, is highly related to improving cognition. We want stress-free play zones, okay? So bring back free play, go outside and play, that's all good. Cook in your kitchen, make stuff, let the children lead, let the children be creative, let everyone have fun. Beyond that, I really think that sequencing is such an important cognitive function in the brain, and it's so highly related to executive function dysfunction and ADHD, that just helping children understand that, as an example, when you throw a ball, you do 1, 2, 3. That's a sequence. Lift your hand, bring it back, throw it forward. Or when you kick a ball, I've got some really fun soccer activities where we tap the top of the ball, and then we take a step back, and then we kick. So it's 1, 2, 3. And as the children get better, we even add like this little rhythmic half step with the other foot. So just doing a sequence, very short sequenced movements in sport and in play is just a really great thing for the brain.
It sounds like it's, a fun way for parents and kids to interact. So it's not like homework or exercises, just sort of incorporated into fun stuff kids do anyhow. Lynn, I have a question about whether there's any research on how movement can improve or help with learning in other areas of learning and for kids with other learning issues besides ADHD.
Yeah, so there right now, mostly movement is being studied as it relates to increasing specific executive functions and improving academic achievement. All right. But there's this whole other body of literature that Dr. Ann Alexander has introduced me to. She's a developmental pediatrician who I've known for a long time. And she's introduced me to this whole area in dyslexia regarding cerebellar deficits. And now there are a few studies in ADHD regarding cerebellar deficits. So and there's also another body of research by Raina Gordon and Goswami and Korovo that shows that there are some timing issues in specifically dyslexia. So the answer to your question really is that where we used to be siloed, as an example, the cognitive psychologist would focus one line of research, and the exercise physiologist would focus on another. Slowly, the findings from these different areas are coming together, and that in combination with the utilization of fMRI, diffusion tensor imaging, EEG, is really literally going to catapult this area of research. So yes, lots of areas are being studied.
That's going to be terrific for a lot of our parents.
Yeah.
We have a question here about Go Noodle and its use of in schools, in the classroom, in terms of movement breaks. So can you explain a little bit about what that is? And then we're curious to know what your opinion of it is.
Yeah, so, Go Noodle, I like Go Noodle a lot, and I watch the videos, and I think they're getting progressively more kind of sequential and rhythmic, which I like. I mean, ultimately, I would like PBS. I would like to write programming for PBS for like 3, 4, and 5-year-olds where we really taught beat competency, sequencing, coordinative movements. Those things are just really important. So I really like Go Noodle. It would be a class probably of simple exercise, and what you're doing is, you're following along with the people on the screen, and you're sometimes dancing, and they've added some vocabulary songs. I think that's all wonderful. And I think that, it's free and it's available to teachers, and I would, if you've got access to nothing else, I would use Go Noodle, 3 to 5 minutes, 5 or 6 times throughout the day. Or I would use Go Noodle, 3 times, and then do some combinations of some very simple motor skill activities like march, 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 clap, 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 step, 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 pause. Something like that. Simple. See, if you're going to kind of be dancey, you want to keep it in 4 counts and 8 counts, because many of the children in these classrooms don't have good coordination. So I like all these programs. I like Spark. I like Fitbound. I just want to see the whole field become more purposeful and intentional in terms of providing opportunities for brain growth in some of the physical activities. It doesn't have to be every single one all day.
Lynne, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave with parents, or the key takeaways that you'd like them to come away with?
Yeah, I mean, I think some key takeaways are, if you're going to do motor movement, what the first step, as Nacho Aramani taught me, is to just let a kid catch a beat on a pulse. So, and this is a fun activity for you to do, Gail. You just start walking at your desk at a natural pace, and then you turn on your metronome. You can get them for free on your smartphone, and you see what your natural pace is. So you turn on your metronome and it's 90, and you're like, no, I'm a little slower than that, or I'm a little faster than that. And then you do the activity with your child, and then you play games where you're just trying to march to the beat, right? And once you've just marched to the beat, then you can add something else, like a hand clap or a snap. So 1 is really help children understand pulse. 2 is help children understand what it means to slow down. And we haven't spoken yet about Tai Chi and yoga, even though we've packed a lot into a 30-minute chat. Meditation, slow coordinative movement, Tai Chi, yoga. Really teaching children to take a deep breath and slow their bodies down is equally important. So that's another reason why you don't need something as energetic as Go Noodle throughout your day. You could also do, in 5 and 45, we have what's called Yogavate, which is a whole series of yoga movements. And I've got a little activity called Tai Chi Me that's really fun, where we have the children spin a funnel and then climb in the funnel and then carry this energy ball from side to side. So I think at home, find the pulse, teach children how to learn to slow down. Don't overthink it. Don't work too hard. Play, be silly, laugh. Do yoga if you can. Do Tai Chi. Do meditation if you can. And most of all, get outside and play.
Sounds terrific. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And remember that you can see all of our expert events at u.org/calendar. Thanks again, and have a great day.